Hello and welcome to the Piney News for April 2016. And we once again do have a lot to talk about, including some pretty major problems with the new buses at Nice. But first, let's talk about the environment. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has violated state law in illegal tree removal of 1/2 acres of trees along the Peconic in the Pine Barrens core preservation area. Basically, this was a boat launch. It was along, I believe it was along River Road, which is sort of like between Riverhead. It's the Brookhaven town, but it's near Riverhead. And we're going to look at what they did right now.
Okay, we are going to look at an overview of the Riverhead Peconic watershed and what the DEC has done here. And we're going to take you into this area here. This is Peconic Bog County Park, and this is around Riverhead area, but this side is the town of Brookhaven. Now as I zoom in, you're going to see a cleared area. Now this is in the core preservation area. The Pine Barrens Society has remained silent about it. And what they did here is they cleared a bunch of trees to expand the parking lot at a boat launch. This is the DEC that did this in the middle of the Pine Barrens. So what I want to look at now, this is a current satellite picture, but what I want to look at now is we're going to take the clock back and show you what they did. See, it used to be woods. Used to be woods there. You see the area that used to be woods? And they cleared it. This is the State of New York Department of Environmental Conservation, supposed to protect the environment, and here they are destroying it. And no one is really getting involved and speaking up about it. Look at that. Unbelievable. I want to see if this street view possibly can show us what they did here. Oh, see, this is what it used to look like, I think. That's what it used to look like. This street view is, I don't know what it's from. Yeah, 2012. So this is what it used to look like over here. All these trees are gone. They made the parking lot bigger. How can an agency that's supposed to protect the environment wind up destroying it? And where's the Pine Barrens Society once again? Why do they only get involved in certain things when they should be protecting all things when it comes to the environment?
So as you can see, they cleared all those trees to expand the parking lot. Not supposed to remove trees in the Pine Barrens core preservation area. And strangely, the Long Island Pine Barrens Society has been completely silent on the issue, completely silent. And I find that very interesting. You know, here we go, another instance of tree. You know, I'm glad the Pine Barrens Society is fighting against a lot of these terrible developments like the Quag sand, the hills at Quag. But they need to be involved in all things that harm the Pine Barrens, not just some things that harm the Pine Barrens. And while it may only be a 1/2 acre, it still violates state law. The Department of Environmental Conservation is supposed to protect our environment, and here they are violating state law. I find it pretty disgusting, and I think there needs to be some action and some changes at the DEC. I really do. That is just outrageous. It's bad enough that the DEC has other things, like not allowing hikers in the woods on DEC properties in January. I have a big problem with that. I also have a big problem with having to have it, even though the permit's free, I have a big problem with requiring a permit. New Jersey does not require a permit to go into their Pine Barrens. Moriches, in Moriches, they are fighting to preserve land. The developers want to build more McMansions and strip malls in Moriches, Center Moriches area, Spionk, which is a very rural area, but there's a lot of land that's undeveloped or is lightly developed that developers want to ruin. But I'm glad that people are joining together to fight to preserve the character of that land. I'm really glad about that. So now let's get to the public transportation news. And we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the public transportation. Nice XN40 buses. Now, riding them, I have to say riding them, I like the design inside and stuff, but a fellow bus operator at NICE pointed out a major defect. And I couldn't believe I didn't notice this. The front end of the buses are too low to the ground. When they designed the bus, they made it, I don't know if it's New Flyer's fault, but I believe it's NICE's fault, because NICE would spec the buses as to what kind of chassis they would use and all that. They're too low to the ground. And what's going on is they are scraping the bottoms of curbs wherever buses make turns, like at Nassau or Roosevelt Field or whatever. And the other thing is the undercarriage front end is so low of the bus that if you're going over a bump in the road or any kind of change in road height, the bus will bottom out. So a lot of the bus drivers have to go very slow, otherwise the bus will bottom out. The buses are very low to the ground, the suspension is very soft. And now we're going to take a look at what they're doing to the curbs at Nassau, Nassau community, as well as you'll see right on camera that a nice bus, an XN40, you could first look at an Orion 7, which is higher up, and then the XN40, which actually scrapes the curb and does exactly what I'm talking about. So that's up right now.
I want to show you some of the curb damage here. This is at Nassau Community College. And these are from the XN40s, because they're so low to the ground, they're hitting the curbs, especially the front end of the bus, and it's causing damage to the curbs. As the buses turn in the driveway, they brush up against these curbs. And this is happening all across the county at bus stops because the XN40s are too low to the ground. And you can see the paint scraping up against that curb there, and then we have another big chunk of the curb taken out over here by these buses. Serious problem and a serious design defect. Now we're going to look at an Orion 7 pulling in. And I want you to take a close look at how much higher the bus is as it turns. Now let's look at this XN40. It actually scrapes the ground, which startles me. Now let's see that again.
I got it on camera.
So as you can see, the XN40's front end is too low, and it's scraping on everything, and it's going to cause unnecessary wear and tear on the bus. Another blunder by NICE.
As you can see, yeah, this is a major problem, and this is going to cause unnecessary wear and tear on the buses. You know, MTA makes sure when they order a bus to make sure that they have many tests involved to make sure that bus is fit for use. NICE does not have those tests. And this is, once again, result of when you have a bus operation with people that do not know what they're doing, that don't have the experience, ordering buses that do not fit, do not belong here. That look is very popular maybe in France, where Transdev comes from, but here in America, buses that low are a real problem. And I don't even want to think about how they're going to do next winter in the snow. And of course, they're breaking down already, already. The other news with Nice Bus is there was a meeting on March 31st yesterday. 2 days notice, couldn't make it, so I can't bring any footage from that, but basically it was about the service restorations, and they're going to be trying something really different on some of these routes, like the N2 and 8 are going to be using a flexibus, which is sort of like a reservation bus. You've got to call and ahead to, I don't know how this concept is going to work here. It does work in other suburban areas where it's what you call a demand response route. And they're going to use smaller buses that they're ordering right now for these routes. And we'll see how it works. Basically, for the people who need it and use it on a regular basis, they'll have a bus. But you can't just show up at the bus stop and expect the bus to come. You have to call at least 2 hours in advance. So I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'll give them credit for at least trying something different. And the N14, N62, and N73 are going to use rush hour. They're going to use smaller buses like paratransit buses and only run rush hours only. using those little paratransit buses. So that is what they're doing there. Now, the other thing with Nice Bus is security issues. Now, another thing when MTA left, when MTA left, they took all the maintenance trucks. We used to have a lot of maintenance trucks. Nice has these little vans that are a joke. All right, you've seen what they look like, and I think they're a joke. But the other thing that's been going on is there's no more really any good security at Hempstead Transit Center. And Hempstead Transit Center wasn't great back then, but now it is a full-fledged hellhole. All right, it makes the Port Authority look like paradise. All right, there are hustlers going on buses, and there's a number of them. They go on the bus, they ask the bus driver for a transfer, and they're going to argue with the bus driver. They just walk on the bus and ask for a transfer without paying. And what they do is they eventually get a driver who's going to give them a transfer, make up a story, and then they go and they sell that transfer. So they're sort of like the swipers on the subway, except for buses. And the supervisors sit there, they see this going on, and they do absolutely nothing. Here's Nice Bus losing revenue, and they don't do a damn thing about it. When people talk about changes that need to be made to the bus system, Ed Mangano and the Nassau County Legislature need to admit, that they have made a colossal mistake and need to get back to the table with the MTA. MTA knows how to run a bus system. There are plenty of problems with MTA. It's not perfect, but they certainly know a lot more what they're doing compared to this little operation here, which keeps making mistakes, can't maintain the buses, and can't even order a new bus fleet without a problem because they don't have testing like MTA does. So that is what is going on at Nice. Now let's talk about the Long Island Railroad. The Third Track Project now goes to an environmental review. It is moving forward, and I'm very happy to see that it is moving forward. I think this is great news, and it's much needed along the main line. It's a much needed project. It's also going to be great crossing elimination, so it's going to be like the Babylon branch with 3 tracks. And I think anyone who stands in the way of this project is absolutely insane. Insane. All right? That's the thing. So, the other news, speaking of the Babylon branch, the Babylon branch was rated the least efficient recently by the, I think, Tri-State Transportation Campaign, or was it Strap Hankers or whatever, least efficient because they said that there were the most delays on the trains. The thing is, they have the most service. And I think it is the least efficient because I think they have too much service in some ways. And meanwhile, the main line is woefully underserved. Day after day, I'm on the South Shore area. I see the trains in rush hour. There are a few people standing on them, and that's it. All right. Meanwhile, your typical train that stops in Westbury on the main line, let's take a look at this 722 Huntington train here. It was packed. I rode it yesterday. It was jammed. And well, let's just now take a look. I took a little video inside to show you what it was like. Well, you want to see what we deal with here on the Huntington branch? This is what we deal with in rush hour. Spoiled Babylon folks don't have to deal with crowding like this. And like this. Alright? Wall-to-wall people. 722 train out of Penn. So that is what your typical mainline train looks like. Much more crowded because we don't have enough service. Most stations along the Babylon branch get a train every 10-15 minutes. Here, even in rush hour, you can be waiting 30 minutes. It's woefully inadequate, and part of it has to do with the lack of a third track, but part of it can change right now, and that is something I'm going to talk about later this month. I'm going to look at how we can make space on the main line. First of all, why are 7 rush hour Montauk trains using the main line when they should be going down the Babylon branch? They are taking up precious space for people on the main line and providing no benefit to those people because they serve the South Shore. So I have a huge problem with that. Huge problem with that, and that needs to change right now. All right? They just get too much service. That's the bottom line. And speaking of the Long Island Railroad here, the parking rules took effect today in those Babylon branch stations. Now it's resident-only parking on a lot of those stations on the Babylon Ranch because, well, we all know how they feel about outsiders coming to the train station.
Now anybody can park here from wherever, and they're coming from all over the place.
I know people who come from Westbury, East Meadow, Hicksville.
So, yeah, that is basically what's going on down there, making it more difficult to use the train stations with the best service. Go figure. That is basically what is going on with that. Now, let's get to the latest with my Title VI complaint. All right. Now, well, last month I sent in a Title VI complaint about how many, so many trains skipping Westbury, especially on the weekends when there's really no reason for it. It's not like it's the rush hour and the main line's at capacity, and they could have the trains. I think the line has half-hourly service on the weekends, yet Westbury only sees hourly service. And that is, and then I bring up the shuttle bus. The shuttle bus is not showing up, and that when they were doing the track work for the bridge over Ellison, and the fact that we don't have cameras, we don't have security cameras at Westbury, whereas every single Babylon branch station has security cameras and other mainline stations. I mean, we have vandalism problems. I mean, certainly more than a place like Merrick or Belmore, but yet they get cameras and we don't. What's up with that, man? So I got a response from the FTA received my complaint. They're looking into it. The railroad already wrote me back. I'll be glad that they wrote me back. But they say that my report regarding service to and from the Westbury station was forwarded to the planning department. Please know that our service personnel work diligently to maximize the effective utilization of the railroad's fleet and make every attempt to align schedules to meet the needs of our customers, which I find they don't do that, all right? I find they don't do that, all right? Babylon Branch gets the best service, while people on the main line get crap, all right? Our timetables are based on a number of factors, including infrastructure, budget, and internal service guidelines. As the Long Island Railroad operates at maximum capacity during peak periods, adding or changing service is a complete complex endeavor, especially along the Long Island Railroad's main line where Westbury is located. Long Island Railroad trains must carefully be slotted along the main line to allow for adequate flow and minimize delays. Although one extra stop may appear nominal, it generally requires adding 3 to 5 minutes to the train's running time given the dynamics involved with decelerating, stopping so customers can enter and exit the train, and accelerating again. Changing one train can affect multiple trains operating on the branch in the same general time frame, as trains must also be carefully slotted for their approach into Penn Station. The railroad has exclusive use of just 5 tracks at Penn and shares 4 others with Amtrak. Moreover, all train traffic must pass through 4 East River tunnels. And then they bring up the LIRR expansion project, which will add a third track between Floral Park and Hicksville to increase capacity with benefits to peak as well as reverse peak service on branches that traverse the main line. In addition, the East Side Access Project will bring Long Island Railroad service into Grand Central Terminal, opening opportunities to revisit and improve Long Island Railroad train systems system-wide. Thank you for taking the time to bring this to my attention. The Long Island Railroad is proud to serve the diverse communities of the New York metropolitan region. We'll keep your suggestions in mind as our timetables are periodically reviewed and revised, and they gave me a number and all that other stuff. So, here's the thing. They did not talk about the security cameras. Why don't we have security cameras? I mean, that has nothing to do with the Third Track Project, all right? And the weekends. I mean, the weekends, the trains are not at, the main line is not at capacity. You can add a stop at Westbury on all those Huntington trains, all right? They say it'll add some running time. It'll add a couple minutes of running time. You can have the train leave Huntington earlier, or you could have some trains skip Cold Spring Harbor. Why is Cold Spring Harbor, which sees much fewer passengers on the weekends, why do they get a train every half an hour, and yet Westbury gets a train every hour? That's classic. Well, Cold Spring Harbor is a rich area, so that's why. That's what's going on. You think I'm stupid. That's why I filed this Title VI complaint. The railroad will make excuses, but the federal government's involved too. So that is what is going on with that. I just think that it's ridiculous. I really do. And I think something needs to change with the way I understand that, you can't, make a radical change without the Third Track Project, but at least you can have more trains stopping at Westbury on the weekends, all right? At least you can do that, all right? So that is, I understand the rush hour is a little tight. But I still think even that we can change, because we have Montauk trains using the main line when they should be using the Babylon branch. Get rid of a few Babylon trains. Those trains are not like our trains, all right? They're going to whine because they're rich. They got this little white state senate power block, and that's why they get what they want. And I know what's going on because it all has to do with politics. But the main line is experiencing huge growth. Many more people are moving here versus the South Shore, which is getting more expensive and full of rich people, rich preppy people. Even Lindenhurst. I was in Lindenhurst, and I noticed like loads of luxury cars all over the place. Constant Audis all over the place. Lindenhurst, that used to be a middle-class area. The rich people are moving there now. Every area on Long Island that has good trains, has low crime and good quality of life, these rich people are snatching up. You know, meanwhile, the middle of the island is neglected. And we get to deal with all the problems like the illegals and all that other stuff. You know, it's not fair. It is not fair. And so this brings me to my next story. Happiest Long Island towns. Also the most expensive. Yeah, they had came up with a list of happiest Long Island towns. And most of them were expensive. They were expensive. You know, and you know, they're expensive. Wantor, Merrick, Cold Spring Harbor, Setauket, they're all rich places. Of course they're going to be happy. But the majority of people on Long Island are unhappy because of what we deal with. Majority of us are whatever is left of the middle class is getting squeezed out. You get these rich people that are taking over all the good areas, and then the other areas, they get illegals dumped in them. Like my area, right? And you know, this is a serious problem. The dichotomy on Long Island. You go someplace, you got to get these preppy people, these rich preppy people with their shorts and boat shoes and whatever, and this snobby way of acting. And then you go into another area, and you got to listen to you know, these ghetto cars driving around with no mufflers, you know, and rap music blasting, and people swagging walking all over the place, and strange people hanging around. It's like, where's the middle left on Long Island? It keeps shrinking down. All right, we have a serious problem here. And I know that's a little off topic, but it does really make it, you know, Long Island is still a lovely place to live, but it's getting harder and harder for people who aren't rich to enjoy it. And I'm going to keep talking about that. And I'm going to keep talking about the Pine Barrens. And I want to thank you for watching. And there's no April Fools in this. This is all real news. I wish it wasn't. I wish Long Island was heading in the right direction, but we have to steady the course of this ship because we have some serious issues that still aren't getting talked about by the media, that are still getting neglected by the politicians, and you know, and we got to stand up and save you know, our Pine Barrens. We got to get our quality of life. We got to bring down the cost of living here. It's too damn expensive. You know, why do you have to be rich to enjoy living on Long Island? Everybody should be able to enjoy living on Long Island. And that is it for this Piney News. Take it easy.